Hey, good morning, y'all. Joshua Severe Weather. Happy Monday to you. Lots of weather to again talk about here this week, especially severe weather and flooding. Those are going to be the main things I chat about here, and we'll take a peek at the tropics. But we've got, unfortunately, in the Northeast and especially New England, a historic flood in progress. Just a very rich, moist environment, a slow moving storm system, and a lot of rain coming down. We have seen reports of some places getting a 1 in 1,000 year flood event. I don't even know how that's calculated, to be honest, but apparently it's not supposed to happen for another 1,000 years. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, big time flooding expected to continue here in portions of western and central New England up into southeastern Quebec, far eastern New York State here throughout the day today and continuing into tonight. Before things will slowly improve tomorrow. But on the heels of that, we've got another active storm pattern coming. Big ridge of high pressure in the southwest, strong trough moving through central Canada. In between the two, we've got our next storm system, which is likely to bring multiple complexes of heavy rain and severe weather. I've got that area highlighted from parts of the mid-Missouri Valley right on down into the mid-Mississippi Valley and the lower Ohio Valley, including St. Louis, Des Moines, maybe to Memphis, Tennessee, as far east as maybe Evansville, Indiana, and that's going to be taking shape here in the next day or two, with some severe weather expected in the high plains, in the central plains, as well as into parts of the Midwest and the western lakes here, or the upper lakes, through the next 24 to 48 hours, continuing southward towards the middle of this week. So a very busy week expected. It was a busy day yesterday. We did have over 141 wind reports, especially in North Carolina, where I am in Raleigh. We had some trees down, a lot of limbs down, a very big complex roared through here early in the afternoon. A lot of severe weather as well over portions of the Northeast, although that is being overshadowed by the amount of flooding. And I know some of you are watching from West Virginia and Southern Ohio. We did have a little severe weather and certainly some rain, which was needed. But fortunately, that is coming to an end. But you can see our next disturbance moving through Minnesota has produced some hail. And as we get through the next couple of days, that's going to dive south and east. You'll see, I had this map set up for us, and apparently that has changed according to the National Weather Service. But you'll see we did have multiple reports of flash flooding over parts of the eastern U.S., especially over New York State, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Eastern and southeastern Pennsylvania, major reports of flooding in the Reading area with fast-moving waters. Major reports of flooding north of New York City in places like, getting up into Montrose and Peekskill and Stony Point, West Point, New York, where the U.S. Army Academy is, military academy, and now those reports of flooding are expanding northward into New Hampshire and especially Vermont and northeastern New York. That's the area of greatest concern for today. I'll show you in a little bit the amounts of rain that the radar estimates, but definitely that is the area to watch for today. Now, we are going to see some severe weather again across the plains in the Midwest. We saw it yesterday in northern Minnesota. Today it shifts into southern Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, central Nebraska, and into Wisconsin as well. And there will be a 2% chance for tornadoes around the Twin Cities and into central Wisconsin. That includes Stevens Point, Wausau, Green Bay, Appleton, La Crosse. And we'll continue to watch that area for wind damage as well later today into this evening. A 15% risk of severe wind basically around this ring here from West Texas up into Wisconsin and upper Michigan. There is a chance for some severe weather as well over the Gulf states and over parts of southern New England and over parts of Montana. And we could see some hail in the same areas that have the tornado and wind threat here over Minnesota and Wisconsin, as well as parts of the high plains here. Now, as we get to the day tomorrow, that will shift south and east with our next boundary. Generally, a risk for severe weather anywhere from Montana over to Michigan, Illinois, and into the lower lakes here, but a better chance across Nebraska and Iowa, and there could be some heavy rain and a major complex of storms. The Gulf states will stay unsettled here from Texas into northern Florida. There is going to be a risk for some severe wind down on the Gulf states as well as some hail, but the greatest chance for severe weather, including tornadoes, is over the mid-Missouri Valley into the Iowa region and northwestern parts of Minnesota. And that is the area to watch as we continue into Wednesday. It's going to expand south and east. We'll likely have multiple complexes kind of diving south and east across Illinois and Missouri, and eventually getting down perhaps into western Tennessee and eastern Arkansas by Thursday morning. That boundary will bring another wave of stronger storms into the lower lakes as well as into northern parts of New England. Looks like a quieter pattern, though, across the mid-Atlantic region over the next 3 days before this will eventually move south and east. So the southeast, you're getting some stronger storms. You're getting heat and humidity. That's not unusual for mid-July, but we do have to watch this as it dives south and east. Right now, the Storm Prediction Center says the chance of predicting where it's going to be most intense is too low. But I will tell you, I think the Tennessee Valley and Arkansas down into Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia will be the places to watch for severe weather. And some of those areas are going to get hit hard here this afternoon as well, as we see that marginal risk from the low country right across the Gulf states here. And this could expand up to Charleston, maybe even Georgetown, South Carolina. If you look at the upper level pattern, you can see why. Big trough digging southward here across central Canada, moving towards the upper Great Lakes. Slow moving storm system over the eastern seaboard. We'll see less severe weather today than yesterday, but we see a lot of rain moving up across northeastern parts of the U.S. into southeastern Canada. And then you can see there are some storms firing up over parts of Texas and along the Gulf states on the southern part of our front here. And this will eventually see a more progressive pattern in the next couple of days. But as this trough dives south and east, we'll see more unsettled weather developing here in the high plains, and that will expand east and southeastward over the top of our high pressure ridge. Here's a look at the GFS's upper level pattern. Big trough here over central Canada, big block over Greenland. In between the trough and the block, you have waves of moisture riding up and over the same places here of New England. It is going to dry out across parts of the Delaware Valley and the mid-Atlantic states today, so good news there. We need that. But as we head over the next couple of days, we are going to see this trough moving east and more disturbances coming up into the northeast and more waves riding up and over the ridge here across the upper Midwest. And you can see this is tomorrow night into Wednesday, and very fast wind flow moving through Iowa, Missouri, and parts of Illinois here by the beginning of Thursday. And that is going to eventually expand eastward here Friday. So the Tennessee Valley right up through the Appalachians into the northeast. We'll see busy weather again at the end of this week and again heading into the weekend. Unfortunately, the monsoon is not likely to kick in. Death Ridge is what we call it here over the southwestern U.S. That is going to be locked into place here, and really no relief coming from that. In fact, the heat will continue to build as we get into next week, and that'll expand across the southeastern states as well, and eventually into the Great Lakes region. So we are going to heat on up here with this Death Ridge in place over the southwest, and that is going to also protect the Gulf states from any kind of tropical trouble here over the pretty much the rest of the month of July. Now, in the shorter term, the NAM model shows we do have a disturbance moving across the southeast that will trigger some stronger storms. The next one, though, is going to dive out of the Dakotas into parts of Nebraska and Missouri here. This is overnight tonight and into tomorrow. You see this piece of energy here lifting through the Great Lakes, and then yet another disturbance coming through here tomorrow night, moving through Iowa, and then you can see how the wind flow aloft increases here. Very strong winds aloft in the St. Louis area into central and downstate Illinois here by Wednesday morning, and that will trigger and likely sustain our next complex of storms. And that is the area to watch here, this region here, over the middle parts of this week. Here's a look at storm fuel, because it's great to have fast winds aloft if you want severe weather, but you need to have a trigger and you need to have fuel in place. You can see the storm fuel picks up here. This is the Cape here tonight into tomorrow. Kansas and Nebraska, quite a bit of storm fuel. And as we move into the day tomorrow, we see it building across portions of southern Iowa and Missouri through tomorrow night. And still quite a large amount of Cape in place here on Wednesday over Kansas and especially Missouri and downstate Illinois. This is certainly the kind of numbers that you will typically find up and over a strong region of high pressure. And as we have that disturbance moving down, we will likely have widespread severe weather here later Wednesday over this portion of the country. As we look a little bit farther along on Thursday, we can see that amount of Cape actually lifts a bit north and eastward into central Illinois, southwestern parts of Indiana, and central parts of Tennessee and Kentucky as well. And we are going to see those numbers climbing again on Thursday. So very active weather across this portion of the country. I do think we are going to see the kind of storms that knock out power for lots of folks and produce a lot of rain as well. We'll take a look here at the shorter term here in the central U.S. Pretty quiet right now as we get later into the day today. We do see storm development over Nebraska, northeastern Colorado, southeastern parts of South Dakota. This is 4 o'clock Mountain Time, 5 o'clock Central Time. And then as we head later into the day, everything moves south and eastward. We will likely see a watch box or two from Kansas into Iowa here. This will continue on to the south and east, and we will see additional storm development here later tomorrow over portions of central Nebraska, and then expanding eastward here tomorrow night into southeastern South Dakota and northwestern Iowa. And this is where our next complex of storms likely takes shape here around Sioux City, Iowa, later tomorrow night, carrying south and east through Iowa overnight tomorrow night. And then as we hit bigger amounts of storm fuel, the model does not go past lunchtime on Wednesday, but notice St. Louis is going to have a hot day, and then storms are going to cool things off, but also potentially knock out the power here Wednesday afternoon over Illinois and Missouri. Looking farther north and east, I did talk about severe weather across Minnesota. You can see things are not going to be too busy this morning, but through the heating of the day, as our front drops south and eastward here, we are likely to see stronger storms by about 7 o'clock Central Time here, or 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central Time over northwestern Wisconsin, the western UP, central and southern Minnesota, and this boundary heads south and east. So northern Wisconsin especially gets hit hard early this evening, then central Wisconsin later this evening, and then northern Iowa and southern Wisconsin potentially could still have some severe weather here around the midnight hour tonight. As we move into the day on Tuesday, we'll obviously see these storms kind of falling apart. They lose the storm fuel that's needed to sustain them, but the next disturbance moves in. We'll see additional development in the lower Great Lakes here later in the day tomorrow, and then continuing into tomorrow night, you see scattered showers and storms. Some of these could produce some hail. The tornado threat, not super high, but it is there. So keep an eye on that. And certainly I think strong winds and heavy rain are going to be your biggest threats here, and frequent lightning. I think that goes to say in July, anytime we've got complexes like this, we're going to see a lot of lightning. That can cause house fires. That, of course, will compromise your safety. So be prepared for that. Wednesday, you see our next complex quickly pushing through Iowa into Illinois and Missouri here in the morning hours. And then in the afternoon, we will likely see all things breaking loose here over central parts of Illinois and Missouri. Here's the Ohio Valley. A quiet day today, should be a really nice day. We get geared up for our next system, which moves in tomorrow, scattered showers and storms. And then Wednesday, things will start getting busier. That continues into Thursday. Future videos will cover that. The Gulf states will stay busy. This is 2 in the afternoon Eastern, 1 in the afternoon Central. You see where our front is draped. Northeast Texas, right through southern Mississippi and Alabama, northern Florida, and then right up into the eastern Carolinas. A quieter day in the Carolinas overall, but we will have heavy rain over the low country here, continuing into Georgia, northern Florida. Northern Florida, I think, has our best chance of seeing severe weather in the afternoon today. Maybe central Florida late in the afternoon. Leftover showers and storms across Louisiana here. I will admit my forecast did bust here in Mississippi and Alabama yesterday. We had storms, but we didn't have the timing right on our complex, so we did not have a significant outbreak. So I was wrong, and I apologize for that. We can't get them all right, and I'm not going to lie about that. But we are going to get a break in Mississippi and Alabama before this front does lift back up to the north and east here. And I think that starts on Wednesday in the afternoon. The NAM model doesn't show a lot before lunchtime, but in the afternoon, you can kind of see our front is right here. We've got building Cape values, and I think the second half of this week is going to be busy again across this region. In the Northeast, we are going to dry out across Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic region, staying busy though across New England. Scattered showers here today into this evening over parts of Virginia, Maryland, central PA. Nothing super heavy, fortunately, and probably no severe weather at this point. Very nice dew points. It'll be a cooler night tonight. We need that. It's been so muggy over the last 10 days. A cooler night, though, will follow, but then temperatures start climbing again, and we see our next front dropping through the lower lakes here into the Northeast on Wednesday. That'll bring scattered showers and storms to places like Buffalo, Coudersport, Bradford, Pennsylvania, Syracuse, and Rochester, New York, and maybe northeastern Ohio as well. Unfortunately, the model only gets to about lunchtime Wednesday. Beyond then, I think, is when our busier weather is going to be. Now, let's look at the Northeast, and this is not what you want to see. More rounds of very heavy rain over Vermont, New Hampshire, western and central Massachusetts, and moving into northern Maine and southeastern Quebec here. The rain is still falling here this evening. This is going to be around 11 o'clock. Northern Vermont, northern and central New Hampshire, southwest Maine do continue to get pounded with very heavy rain. And there could be some severe weather across southern and central parts of New England, maybe some stronger winds as we do have this trough pushing through. But this is overnight tonight, and it's raining in almost the same places where it's raining right now. There is some relief coming, though, as our rain does lift up to the north and east here tomorrow afternoon. After this low moves out, though, the next front kicks it out, and it moves right on in. It's like getting rid of that unwanted house guest and then replacing it with another rude house guest, unfortunately. This front, though, looks like it's moving a little more quickly here by Wednesday, so be prepared for the next wave of potential severe weather. This is something you really don't see very often. In fact, the state of Vermont has not had a high risk for flash flooding forecast in the last 10 years, and now it does have it. Eastern New York as well. You can see that if I zoom in. Gets to about Montpelier, Rutland, and Middlebury up to the Lake Champlain region. And obviously, we don't forecast, at least NOAA doesn't for Canada, but that will continue up to the east of Montreal towards places like Granby, and a moderate risk into western Maine, and a slight risk all the way into northern Maine. So if you're in Maine, it'll be raining on the plain for sure. But heavy rain all the way down to southern New England, across Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and even somewhat this morning still over parts of Long Island and eastern New York as well. Tomorrow we continue to have an excessive rainfall outlook. It does improve, but in the morning hours, we continue to have that flash flood threat continuing. And everything that is raining right now and is causing flooding, all these rivers here, as they move downstream, could produce river flooding down into parts of New York State, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. So even though it's done raining, we'll still have river flooding to deal with throughout much of the week, as we've just had incredible amounts of rain. Now, our next storm system could bring excessive rainfall into the Great Lakes and Midwest here as we get later into Tuesday in Iowa, and then Wednesday in the Ohio River valleys and in the Great Lakes. And that continues to be a problem that moves south and eastward with our front here on Thursday. We have a slight risk for flooding over the mid-Missouri and lower Missouri valleys. Then as we head into Friday, again, this upcoming Friday, the same areas are targeted for heavy rainfall. My future videos will get into more detail. Right now, the details are still a bit nebulous. We don't quite know where things are going to set up, but this is the very last thing if you're in the Northeast that you want to see. But as we get to Friday and Saturday, we could have a repeat type situation with flooding just being renewed in the same places. And in the South as well, we do have to watch out for some flooding here on Friday and into the weekend. Here are forecast rainfall totals here, and in southern New England, most of us are going to get less than 2 additional inches. We may see up to 3, though, in places like Peabody and on the north side of Boston here, and amounts up to 4 inches in the Taconics and Berkshires over the next 24 hours. In New England, just catastrophic amounts of rain here. You see in Vermont, the potential for up to 9 inches of new rainfall from early this morning through tomorrow. Potential in New Hampshire for 5 inches around the presidential area in Conway. Southwestern New Hampshire, 5 inches. Western Maine, 4 to 5 inches. Eastern Maine, not quite as wet, fortunately. And then as we get up into southeast Quebec, potential for 3 to 6 inches of rain as well, according to the NAM model. And more on top of this here in eastern Maine here overnight tonight into tomorrow, and even a couple inches into parts of New Brunswick. I guess if we're doing centimeters, that'd be about 5 centimeters. The southeast is going to see quite a bit of rain here as well, with our front just stacked across the area, amounts maybe up to 4 to 5 inches. Southeastern Alabama, the NAM is spitting out over 10 inches of rain near Dothan, so be prepared for that. These forecasts are trickier because we're talking kind of more of a mesoscale type setup versus a larger synoptic scale setup, but you can see the NAM model does have some areas painted with very heavy amounts of rain over the next few days. Parts of northern Florida, parts of Mississippi, and especially southwest Georgia and southeast Alabama. So the exact county that gets this amount of rain may be off a little bit, but certainly that potential is there. And finally, looking at the upper Midwest, we talked about heavy rain. Iowa, South Dakota, that will head south and east towards St. Louis. Maybe some heavy rain as well across northern parts of Wisconsin. If I zoomed into Iowa, that's where our best chance for rain and potential flooding could be. Des Moines may see a couple inches. You get north and west toward Fort Dodge, maybe we're talking 4 or 5 inches of rain. and maybe over 5 inches in the northwestern part of the state, north of Sioux City, it looks like. So kind of the northern part of Iowa here could get hit with very heavy amounts of rain. And here's the bad news. Our 6 to 10 day outlook shows areas that need the rain are going to get very low percentages of that. Areas that don't need the rain are going to have higher percentages of above average rain. This is through the first half of next week. And then beyond that, still a high likelihood that the Northeast and the Tennessee Valley and parts of the Southeast have above average precipitation. Temperatures, while they're going to be cool the next few days over the upper Midwest, are blazing hot in the Southwest, hotter than average across the South and the Eastern U.S., and beyond in the next week, we see the cool air being replaced by the expanding heat wave that I talked about here at the end of last week. That is not changed. We will continue to see likelihood of above average temperatures building north and eastward into the central and eastern states here by next week. The tropics are still running very warm. The Atlantic Ocean is running very warm. And over the last week, it's only gotten hotter more quickly off the mid-Atlantic coast. And I do think this has contributed to our flood event in the Northeast. The fact that waters have warmed up very quickly, as much as 4 to 5 degrees Celsius in just the last 7 days. That's just providing more ammo here for very heavy rainfall. So this is very bad news as we get more into the meat of the tropics season here, where water temperatures are quickly heating up to above average and will likely be a few degrees above average as we get into August and September off the East Coast. Sea surface temperatures, I pulled this up. This is from the University of Miami, Brian McNulty. Water temperatures off the Florida coast and the Keys are 94 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the water temperature. So if you're in the Keys, you're not going to see low temperatures below 80 anytime soon. So very concerning. Even though we're in an El Nino, that once we start to see storm systems, and it may not be till later in August or September, but once we see something in here, the amount of fuel in place for a quickly developing storm is much higher than average. That is also the case for the East Coast as well. So we'll get more into that. The tropics are pretty quiet right now, nothing of major concern, no threats to land. The Pacific is a little busier than the Atlantic. The Atlantic, we may see something in the north central Atlantic that could become subtropical. Really not a big deal right now, nothing in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If you could subscribe and you haven't yet, please consider doing that so that you'll have the latest. I may not be able to get to do a video in the morning tomorrow. I do have some travel for work early in the day, but I will certainly have more videos later this week. I thank you, but really I cannot do this without my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I want to give God all the glory who allows me to do this. I just can't do anything without God. He created me, He created you, and I want to give Him all the credit. Many times we want to try to do everything ourselves, leaning on our own understanding, and that's just not possible. And I've finally been humbled by knowing that God is there for me. But I also know that every day is a battle. We all battle darkness. We battle the enemy. And there are many titles given to the enemy in the Bible: Satan, Day Star, Son of the Morning, the Anointed Cherub, obviously the devil. The devil is in the details, but the devil is there. The tempter, the one who tempts people to sin, and we all sin. Everybody has sinned. Nobody here is better than anybody else when it comes to that. The prince of demons, the evil one, the enemy, the liar, the father and author of lies, the ruler of this world, which we all know is not really the case. The adversary, the roaring lion, the serpent, the dragon, the old serpent, the deceiver, and the accuser of God's people. So it is very clear that we have darkness out there. And the good news is that there is light that can be brought through that darkness. John 10:10, King James Version: the thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they may have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am Jesus, am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. Jesus has laid his life down for us so that he can erase the darkness if we accept the gift he has given us. And that is life, that is abundance, and that is eternal life. And I am somebody who struggles every day with dark forces. It may be things that are very minor that you may not even consider to be darkness, but temptations could be things that are holding you back from your full potential. Things like procrastination, or I'll start that diet tomorrow, or I'll just take a day off from the gym, or I'll just do one more cookie, or whatever. We all deal with that. I mean, please just be honest with yourself and say that you are. I'm happy to pray for you and help you out through that. But there was a book I read a long time ago by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. It's an 85-year-old book. And Napoleon Hill, one of the greatest authors of all time, a nonfiction book, has been able to uncover the secrets of freedom and success and being able to lay out the things that keep you from your full potential, those obstacles. They are brought forth by the enemy. We may not want to, accept that. We may want to say, look, on TV, they're doing this all the time. It's in the news, whatever. But those are the enemy's successes, keeping you from your potential. But God is here to help you succeed and bring you to your potential. And I could not do this channel if it weren't for God. I pray every day for the success of this channel, but I pray for the people that are subscribers and those of you that have asked me for prayers, and I'm happy to pray for you as well. And I just have one request for you. And whether or not you're a believer, just at least acknowledge that you're not reaching your full potential, but that you can. If you are a believer, you already know that God can help bring you through all the storms in your life. If you're not a believer, I just want to encourage you to maybe just take a look at things, maybe talk to somebody who is a believer and see why they have the joy in their life and why they are working towards the goals God has put there in their life. And if you could pray for me, I would appreciate that. So I'm reading off a script, not looking at you guys. So, hey, I'm looking at you now, and I just want to say, hey, I'm here to encourage you. This is not a beat down, but I want you to start your week off, start your Monday off with joy and not with darkness, not with negative thoughts. And the weather has been bad, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you all for your time today. I hope you have a blessed week, and I will try to get back to you here on Wednesday morning. God bless you.